All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first ever Moxyball video and I guess radio podcast. I'm Jared, and I'm with Zach here. Zach, say hi.
Hi.
What's up, guys? All right. So we're going to walk you through kind of some thoughts as we head up into the Friday slate on the for the first day of the weekend, and talk some FanDuel and DraftKings MLB DFS. So I'm going to kind of play the role of host and kind of jump in with my thoughts. Zach's going to be a bit more of the interviewee. We're going to go back and forth with each other and have a little fun and talk about some guys that'll be helpful for you to think about as you put them into your lineups for Friday night. So first, let's start by talking about what's maybe like the most interesting fact, Zach, that you've kind of come across when you've been scouring the data mining that is the interweb over the last week or so.
For me, it's how good the Rockies pitchers are away from Coors Field. Their home away splits for most of their top guys like John Gray, Tyler Chatwood, Chad Bettis are amazing. And actually, as a whole, they're eighth in least batting average on the road and seventh in lowest team ERA in away games. So a lot of people just totally nix the Rockies pitchers just because they're really bad because of Coors Field, but in away games, I'm targeting them because their prices are lower.
Love it. Yeah, absolutely bang on. It's something that definitely goes overlooked, and I think more people need to give respect to the guys like Chatwood and Bettis in particular. For me, the big thing that stands out for me, and I went back a little bit more than just a week because it's really something that I think has really transpired over the last 30 days, and I think a lot of people are overlooking it. And judging by ownership rates and all the contests I've been playing in, it's definitely reflected in that way. Third best pitcher from a WAR perspective over the last month is Matt Shoemaker. I know I've been talking about him a lot, both on the Fantasy Pros podcast that I've been invited to the last little while, and also on our different columns on Moxyball.com. But that WAR of 1.5 wins is actually better than Syndergaard, better than Arrieta, better than Scherzer, better than Bumgarner, better than Sale, tons of other names. He's pitching to a 2.15 FIP, a 9.8 K per nine, and a sub 1 walk per nine, and that's over 6 starts. So it's not exactly a limited sample size. It's basically, what might be actually about 20% of his total season innings. So really because of his changeup and splitter combo, he's using that at a crazy high rate, around 50%. It's been very effective for him. So I know that he was a hot pickup for over the last little while. If he's out there for you in fantasy, you got to pick him up, but definitely in DFS, you got to really give him consideration when he's in a good spot. And I think he is pitching over the weekend, so definitely going to be getting some exposure to him there.
Yeah, and his price is still reasonable across the industry. You're still getting him below 8,000. So he's almost a must-play every night, especially on DraftKings, where you have to roster 2 pitchers. I don't see how you don't play him right now.
Yeah, totally agree. You got to ride the hot hand while he's pitching well, and just kind of give credit where credit's due. So Zach, what's one matchup that you're looking forward to the most this weekend?
I'm actually looking forward to the Coors Field. I normally hate Coors Field slates, but I'm looking forward to this one because I think everybody's going to gravitate towards Coors Field. But I don't think it's going to be as high scoring as normal because the Padres, I don't care where they hit, they just suck. So probably the worst hitting team in the majors is between them and the Braves. And I don't think they can do anything this series, and they're going to be highly owned, and it's going to allow you to get other guys in better spots at a lower ownership. So I'm really looking forward to the over ownership that's going to be Coors Field this weekend.
I think you hit on a really interesting nugget there that ownership will be a little bit higher than it should. I think that will definitely be the case for Coors, but I have no issue with going with some Rockies. Like, they're in a really good position this weekend. They've got some very attractive matchups, but I agree. I think that you could see something on the other side with Coors being with the Padres being a little bit overowned. So that's a really good one. Just more so for me, I'm just excited about this one game with Detroit and the Yankees taking place on Saturday with Tanaka and Verlander going against each other. I mean, both teams are playing really well right now. They're hitting the ball, and those guys are both pitching extremely well. So it'll be really interesting to see how both of those guys do against some very hot-hitting teams on Saturday night, and they're playing, I think, at 7 o'clock. So it'll be fun to watch that one and definitely play on a GPP slate in some capacity. So looking back again to Friday, it's a Kershaw day. Who are you paying up for?
I'm not paying up for Clayton Kershaw. I'm really probably spending down in the mid range because you got guys like Jason Hamill against Atlanta. You got Matt Harvey who's pitching lights out. You got a bunch of mid tier guys who are really pitching great right now. And I'm not going to spend up for Kershaw because the Giants are just a terrible matchup for him. And if I'm spending 13, he's over 13,000 on both sites. I need a team that's going to strike out more than 17.6%, which is the Giants' K rate against left-handers this season. And even if Kershaw, we all know he's having the season he's having. But the Dodgers, they're taking it easy on him just like they did against the Braves where they only played him 6 innings. And at his price, we really need him to go 8, 9 innings with striking out a batter or two an inning and only giving up a run. And I just don't see the strikeouts there, and I don't see him pitching deep into the game.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I think conventional wisdom says you pay up for Kershaw kind of no matter what the matchup is and where he's pitching, and you just play the elite pitcher and especially for cash games. But I do agree with you. I don't think he is necessarily a must play on Friday night, especially with some other high K guys going as well. For me, I'm actually going to spend up for Strasburg in my cash games. He's got a great matchup against the Phillies, who as we all know, are basically a bottom three team, in the majors in just about every key offensive stat. Strasburg is like a minus 244 favorite right now, and almost 90% of Vegas money is on Washington and Strasburg. So I mean that's huge. I definitely think that, especially in FanDuel where you really need to get the win, going after Strasburg, especially in a really 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 nice matchup, is definitely going to be fruitful. So there we have.
But his injury scares me, though. He's day-to-day at Strasburg. We all know his injury. In cash games, me personally, I love him in GPPs. I'm just worried he's going to get pulled for some hamstring injury or something like Strasburg always does.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I should have kind of prefaced it by saying if all signs are pointing to go, that's a good catch and good little call out there. I mean, he definitely would be, if there is a bit of risk there, a little bit better suited for GPP. But just kind of looking at the way that all the cards are stacked up right now, he's still a guy I have no trouble spending up for in cash if it looks like he's going to be pitching without restriction. So you talked about value. Who exactly are you targeting? Like if you had to choose one guy, who would it be?
Right now, it's a split between Matt Harvey, he fixed whatever was wrong with him, and he's gone 7 innings the past 2 starts with only one run given up, and he's first in the Brewers, who strike out the most against right-handed pitching at 26.3%. Or I'm really looking at John Gray, too. Even though the game is at Cooler Field and his splits are awful, he has just dominated the Padres in his 2 starts with 11 strikeouts and 12 strikeouts, and his price is really low. I'm really looking at him as well in some GPPs.
Yeah, that's great. I think that you're bang on. I mean, there's always every once in a while that Coors start that goes very underowned and has a huge return on investment. I think he could definitely be that guy. I like the call it to those double-digit strikeout games. For me, I'm right there with you with Harvey. I have him. I think his price is still a little bit too low. He's pitching really well. Got a great matchup. He's getting ground balls again. Hard hit rate's still a little bit higher than I want it to be. I think it's in the mid-30s over his last few starts, but that'll continue coming down as he gets a little bit more comfortable. Beyond him, I think that Cole is actually a really interesting mid-range play. He's been throwing the ball really well. Even though it is against the Cardinals, when I put through some of the filters I like to see in terms of ground ball rate, hard hit rate, line drive rate, and velocity, he ranks very high. Cardinals do hit very well, especially so against lefties. So righties get a bit of a better split. But I'm not really worried about giving him a little bit of run in GPPs at a pretty kind of low owned candidate perspective, because I think that he'll be definitely on the lower side of ownership on Friday. Let's look at some bats. Who are a couple that you definitely want to make sure you have in your lineup from like a stud price perspective?
Anthony Rizzo, top right now. He's locked and loaded for me. He's got Bud Norris. Norris stinks against left-handed hitters.
He's allowing, in general, frankly, he's just a terrible baseball pitcher.
Yeah, he is a terrible pitcher. But, I mean, his numbers against lefties, allowing him a 425 OBP, allowing him to slug 543. They got a 411 WOBA. And Rizzo's numbers against right-handed pitchers are amazing at 412 for his on-base percentage, slugging 572 with a 411 WOBA. There's no way he's not in my lineup at only 4,200 on FanDuel.
All right, so we got to trade quickly. I'm going to jump in and give you my first baseman because you're going with Rizzo. I'm going with Goldie. Goldschmidt's got Justin Nicolino on Friday. They have a crazy high run expectancy for a non-Coors game. He sports a 4.39 WOBA against lefties over the last year. Got to have him. I'm sorry. I'm gonna go with Goldie. You go with Rizzo. We might both find it to the promised land, but he's my guy. Who's your second one?
I'm going with Bryce Harper. I mean, in cash games against Jeremy Helton, I can't not go away from him. I'm not a big fan of BVP, but I can't ignore that in 13 plate appearances, Bryce Harper has reached base safely 8 times.
Yeah, that's definitely stuck in the cards in your favor, and his value is pretty good right now out there on DFS, so it's hard to avoid that. I mean, Hellickson has been surprisingly good, but I agree, 8 out of 13 reaching base, that's a high fantasy point floor right there. I definitely want some Coors exposure on the other side, but not for San Diego. I want it on the Colorado end, and so Charlie Blackmon, as long as he's leading at the top of the order. They're projected for almost 7 runs right now, which is absolutely crazy against Andrew Kashner, who's absolutely terrible on the road. And I think that the 355 WOBA that he's got against righties over the last 12 months is going to work in his favor.
Cool. Yeah, you definitely got to have the Rockies, Cargo. The whole outfield's in play tonight.
Yeah, I'm a little worried about Cargo. He struck out a little bit too much over the last few games. He can be incredibly streaky. He should still have some ownership. I'd rather have him in GPPs just because he's got a little bit of a lower floor with the way he's playing right now. But Blackmon at the top of that lineup, and to your point, really anyone else that is in there, especially at a good value, is definitely in play. What about a couple of value bats? Let's talk about value.
Well, and right now, even though he's probably not going to be in the lineup facing a right-handed pitcher, Kiki Hernandez, FanDuel made a mistake. He's only $220. I don't care if he's in the lineup or not. I'm playing him at $220.
Isn't it? Just to make sure we're calling it out for all of our viewers. That's at least it's at least $1,800 underpriced.
Yeah, there's no way I'm not playing Kim. I mean, I've entered in contests and let it go through, so unless they magically fix it, which I don't think they can now, I'm playing Kim. But on pricing, that's not a mistake. I love Stanton at 3,100. I mean, he's struggling right now. Yes, we all know that. But he's going up against a left-handed pitcher who is awful. Patrick Corbin, a lot of right-handed hitters, just slug 491 with a 352 WOBA, but he gets a big park boost at Chase Field. And Stanton, even though he's struggling, still has a 265 ISO and a 358 WOBA against left-handed pitchers at $3,100. That's a matchup I want. I also love Franklin Gutierrez. I can't pronounce his last name. Gutierrez. Yeah. He normally bats second for the M's against left-handed pitcher. He's been really hot against them, and he has a 200 ISO and a WOBA 372, and he's under 3,000. Those are 2 great outfielders to look at in that value range.
Nice, yeah. I like the Stanton play a lot. I actually think the Marlins are going to be a pretty interesting stack, especially, or at least a mini stack with him and Ozuna, who both destroy lefties. And to your point, Stanton's price is really low. He is starting to play a little bit better too. So there is definitely some potential, especially for GPP purposes, and that might go a little bit under-owned considering all the other stacks available in Coors. For me, hard to look past him, but I can't believe I'm going to say this. Chris Parmelee right now. I mean, his price is super low. He did hit 2 home runs the other day, and so he's definitely going to be on the radar for some folks playing for the Yankees. But facing a contact-oriented pitcher like Mike Pelfrey, he's cheap. If he's in the lineup, you got to play him. A little bit of cheap Coors exposure for me is Nick Hundley. I love paying down a little bit or getting some value at the catcher position in particular. So for cash games, especially if he's in the lineup against a righty, his WOBA over the last year is about 350 against them, and like we talked about with Kashner a second ago, and having Coors exposure, it'll be a bit of a fruitful adventure. So definitely not something to shy away from.
So you like going cheap at catcher. Now let me ask you, Jared, if Buster Posey's able to play, are you going to play him at $2,000 in some GPPs?
I think you have to. If you don't play Kershaw, if you want to throw a roll of the dice out there and maybe bank on having him maybe have a productive game, or maybe having an off night. Who knows? I mean, it doesn't happen very often for Kershaw, but they're super cheap. And to your point, I'm not sure if you saw over the weekend. Actually, the Braves got the Kershaw treatment, and I think some of their bats were $1,500.
Yes, they were all
not quite $220 like like Kike Hernandez is for some unknown reason, but I mean, setting new lows in terms of price. But yeah, I mean, Buster Posey at $2,000. That's hard to pass up. I probably, to be honest, I'll backtrack a little bit. I'm probably not going to play it unless I decide to throw a few bucks into a smaller kind of risk GPP just in case I have some really high contrarian and low owned value. But I should add context and say I like paying down at catcher when there's value to be had. I was riding the Evan Gattis train for a long time, but now he's almost $4,000, so it's hard to kind of call him a value play, frankly. But when you get a guy around 2,500 to $3,000 on FanDuel, something in that range, that's projected to play on a team that's going to score 6 to 7, if not more runs. I mean, that's hard to pass up.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely agree.
All right, let's talk about stacks. One safe stack for you to target in cash games, something a bit on the chalkier side. What are you looking at?
Of course, you got the Rockies, but I'm going to go with the Cubs here. I've mentioned how bad Bud Norris is against left-handed pitchers, and the Cubs literally are going to throw out 6 to 7 left-handed batters against them that can all hit. They got Chris Coughlin now from the A's. They're just going to throw out so many left-handed hitters. There's no way to me that they're not going to produce. I'm going to call it right now, even though it is at Atlanta, which is a big downgrade from Wrigley Field. I'm going to call them the highest scoring runs of the day, even over Coors Field.
All right, that's a bold statement. We love that at Moxyball, but definitely something to think about. So that even though you'd call them a bit of a chalkier, stack, if you're going to make that kind of prediction, I mean, you got to play them in GPPs too. I mean, you got to go pretty much all out and make sure you have high exposure to them, eh?
Yeah, I mean, I'm playing them everywhere over. They're in every single one of my lineups.
Yeah, like how I said A there, I just totally showed my Canadian colors. Just totally showed my hand there. For me, I know I'm going to call this a safer stack. It's not necessarily going to be on the chalky side, but I think you got to roll with the Yankees while they're playing as well as they are. They're going up against Pelfrey, like we talked about before. They've got 5+ runs on the board for sure in my mind. Ellsbury, Gardner, Beltran, McCann, maybe even Parmley, like we talked about, as long as he's in the lineup, which he should be, frankly. Those guys are all in play. They're not terribly expensive, and with the way some of them are swinging the bats right now, I think that you're going to see some really solid production out of them. Especially with a bit of speed and power combo for the guys like Gardner and Ellsbury in particular. So don't shy away there, even though we've got some cores, and definitely make sure you have some exposure. What about something that you'd say maybe has a little bit more risk, but more upside, a little bit more of a contrarian stack? What are you looking at?
I'm looking at the Tigers. I know it's hard to say the Tigers as a contrarian stack with upside, but CC Sabathia has actually been really amazing this season. He looks like the old CC Sabathia. If you look at his starts, he hasn't given up more than 3 runs all season long, and he's given up 3 total earned runs in his past 5 starts. So he gives a lot of base runners up still, but as far as runs, he's not giving up the runs. I'm still waiting for the CC of old to show up, especially against right-handed hitters. The Tigers are full of right-handed hitters that can knock the ball out of the park. But I'm really looking at them as what should be a low-on stack with the recent play of CC.
Yeah, I think you're right. They definitely are going to fly under the radar, but they have as much upside as anyone does against a lefty. I mean, you look at what they did to J Happ just a few days ago. They're swinging very well. They've got Castellanos, they've got Miggy, they've got Kinsler, they've got Upton, they've got JD Martinez, Victor Martinez. Like all those guys hitting quite well, and I think you're onto something that could be a really interesting low-owned stack. For me, the other one, I talked about this a little bit with Goldie, but I really like the Diamondbacks against Nicolino. For you guys that read my columns over on Moxyball, I love targeting guys, especially from a hitting perspective, that face high contact pitchers that don't strike out a lot of guys. And Nicolino's right up there. He's got one of the lowest K rates in the entire league, and some of their right-handed bats like Goldie in particular, Wellington Castillo, even look at Brandon Drury, etc. Those guys are all in play for me. A couple fun questions to close off podcast number 1 for us. Do you think Bryce Harper, as a Nats fan yourself, is going to get thrown to enough, pitched to, I'd say, to hit 30 home runs? Bit of maybe a low ball kind of number, but think it through. Do you think he can get there based on the way teams are throwing at him?
I think he can get there. He's already at 13 now, and he can go through stretches where he hits 5, 6 in a week. Every time I happen to go to a Nats game, something big happens to you. You either hit 3 or 4 home runs, or Max Scherzer throws a no hitter. For those of you who didn't know, I went to 2 Nats games last year, and those are the 2 Nats games I went to. And I got plenty of Nats games on the schedule this summer, so I think he can get to it.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm in the spirit of bold predictions, I don't think he's going to make it. I don't know why, but maybe he'll just kind of scrape across it. But I think that based on the way we saw a couple weeks ago when I can't remember what team they were playing against, but it was the Cubs. They just decided not to pitch to him, right? I mean, I think that kind of opened the eyes of pretty much everyone around the majors, and of course Joe Maddon's behind that, that madness. So it wouldn't surprise me if he makes it, but I also won't be shocked at all if he finishes 25 or 27 or so. I mean, that's not far off from 30, but probably not the the top 3 pick that most people are spending on him in fantasy, and the guy that was almost $6,000 on FanDuel not too long ago. All right, well, that's going to kind of wrap it up for us. But I know, Zach, you want to do one last thing to kind of get a little bit more engagement and some love to our viewers. Why don't you take it away?
Yeah, for anybody who subscribes to our YouTube channel, if you just email me at Zach at Moxyball or tweet me on the actual Moxyball Twitter page, then we're going to be running a random giveaway for a Moxie swag, so a T-shirt as well as a week pass to Moxyball Insiders.
Love it. That's awesome. So quickly, just go to our YouTube channel, which is basically just Moxyball on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter. We got Facebook as well. You'll get the podcast anywhere there. Follow it up. Send us a quick note to let us know that you've signed up to kind of join the Moxie following, and Zach will get you taken care of in the contest. All right, thanks so much, guys, for listening. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll try to do this once or twice a week, ongoing, and make it available as often as possible. Best of luck on the Friday slate, and enjoy the weekend.